Hello, world. We're back again. This is DJB.
How's it, everybody? This is Dan, and you are listening to Contemplating Kalimo.
Yeah, man, super excited to be back again. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus, unfortunately, just to the world around us. So I'm definitely excited for this episode, my friend.
Which one is it?
We got, this is season 1, episode 5. Revenge of the Nerds? I don't know, maybe. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens here as we get rolling. But anyway, I think we got a great episode for everybody here tonight.
Yeah, so tonight we have Shea Thundercat Spence with us from the Many Colored Death.
What's
Shea,
up?
how are you?
I'm so good today. I'm so good. How
Man,
are you all doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well, despite COVID.
Yes.
Yeah, so just to kind of, I know you, Shea, because my old band, Jesus, I forgot about it.
My old band.
We didn't play together in Ghost of the Machine, right?
No, just Maiden Waves.
So Maiden Waves, we
Yeah.
played with you guys several times here in Columbia, and then I know after I left, you guys played several times after that. You were an amazing drummer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, because Chris Leffler, he's also an amazing drummer, and
I look up to him. I love Chris so much.
Well, I tell you, man, when we play with you, he every time, he'd make sure that he watched you play. He'd rave about you every time afterwards. So, and he didn't usually do that for many drummers. So, that's definitely a testament to just your skills, man. I would not want to be punched by you. That's for sure.
That's been said by many people.
I'm sure it has. So yeah, I'm a firm believer that kind of telling your story is huge to get that connection with people. So if you want to take a second, you want to kind of give us the background where maybe you started and then the Many Colored Death and how you guys came to where you're at right now.
Sure, yeah. So I started playing drums. Well, I have the stereotypical story of playing on pots and pans, but I played mostly on this Little Tykes art desk. That was my thing. It's just pencils and just all day long. And so my mom finally enrolled me in drum lessons as a 5th grader, I think. And then I did, concert band. I did marching band. I was a huge marching band nerd. That really helped me really build my chops, and I have to give that a ton of credit. So I always encourage young drummers to be in marching band. If anybody that young is listening, be in marching band. I highly encourage it. And then of course I had my first high school bands, my junior year, I think, and really enjoyed it and didn't really ever think about pursuing it outside of high school. But then I just found myself, we were in Battle of the Bands and stuff, and we're winning that. And I'm oh, we could really make a go of this thing.
And that's the Many Colored Death?
No, that was back in high school. So I was in an alt country band that won yeah, I know. It was super weird, but it was a thing. So I was in that, and we won a Battle of the Bands. And I was oh, I kind of want to keep doing that because it was time to go off to college and figure out what the hell I want to do with my life. And so I got, started in college, and that's when I met Brent and Preston. I actually ended up meeting Brent off of a Craigslist ad. He was looking for a drummer with 2 other guys that are obviously no longer in the band. So we met that way. And then Preston happened to walk into the Blue Guitar. I don't know if you guys remember that shop at all. But he came in. He had just moved up from Rolla and was just looking around. And he played the opening chords of Schism by Tool correctly. And Brent was oh, we gotta get this guy to play bass for us. So he came and it was just an immediate gel. And here we are 10 years later. So
yeah, that's awesome.
That's kind of the abridged version of that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be too abridged too. I mean, I definitely, the details are that's what sucks people and sucks me in when I hear people really get into the nitty gritty. But so you guys started what year?
It would be 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
So you guys already got a decade in.
Yep, we just hit our decade mark last month.
Right on. So you hook up with these guys. What does that look like at the beginning? Is it, I don't know, your guys' writing process or anything like that? So,
well, Brent, whenever I first met Brent before Preston was in the picture, Brent just had tons of ideas, just a hard drive and computer full of just riffs, and it was just kind of all him. So we would sit there, listen to a thing, and then I would jam on it for a minute, and then Preston would hop in. So it's kind of it all started with Brent, but then it would start with me, and then we kind of develop it around that. So really, that's kind of how it is still. Brent just has all of these ideas pouring out of him, and we just kind of go with it. And personally, I play better whenever I have like a melody to go off of, so I can kind of set the tone
Sure.
for how I want to play the song. So that's like really important to me, and I like writing that way. But yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, that's always how it's been. It's just Brent has like just constantly just like oozing riffs and oozing ideas. And
is it usually a guitar riff though that's always starting with?
Yeah, most of the time.
And
yeah.
then the vocals come in at what point usually?
Usually last.
Last?
Yeah, he'll like kind of hum a melody over the riff and kind of like get a feel for it, and then those will come in.
So he's already
last.
kind of carving out a niche for where the vocals will be later.
Yes.
He's got that in mind already.
Yeah, but then usually that'll change. So,
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
Just, if we decide to throw something super weird in there like we tend to do.
Yeah,
so.
as it should.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. So right now you guys have hooked up with JPS Productions. When did you guys hook up with them?
A little over a year ago. We had our album release show at Rose Music Hall for our latest album, Okayest, in last May.
Yeah.
And that was a sold-out show, our first sold-out show in the hometown. So that was pretty dope.
Yeah.
Still really like one of my proudest moments, just because, it seems small, like in the grand scheme of things, but it was huge for us because we like really didn't start taking things super seriously until last year. And it was just like really rewarding experience. But before that, we kind of been working with him a little bit. We were still pretty fresh into that. But yeah, it's been a little over a year, and now we're on the Billboard charts and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's I see how great you guys are, like at 57,000 plays on Spotify. I'm not sure where it's at on all the other platforms, but
not near that amount.
do you know, where are you guys getting the most play at? Do you know where at in the States?
I know a lot of activity in, I believe like Texas has been a big state, obviously here in Missouri.
Sure.
But then we've also had a lot of plays in like Chicago and that area, as well as New York and LA. So those kind of like hot spots, but really like mostly in like the southern states, we've had a lot of activity. And then we've also had like a lot of international activity. We've got a lot of South Americans that like us, apparently, which is really cool.
Colombia.
Somebody in Taiwan is playing the hell out of our song. We've noticed that. And then we've got some people in Russia, too, that like it, and multiple other countries. So it's been really cool to kind of watch the stats. And I check them every day obsessively and see, where we're at. And some people have been adding it to their playlists. And it's just cool to see like all the activity, because you really don't realize where your music is being played, especially like being on the radio. We can't keep track of where, or we could, but I don't have time for that. So it's nice to be able to just have that data every single day and watch it update and watch it grow. Yeah,
that is awesome. But yeah, when I think about, see how great you guys are doing, and just that you guys can't be out playing right now is just...
It's painful.
Yeah. So do you guys got plans coming up? Like you already kind of got stuff in the works for 2021 or...
I mean, not right now, since we don't know, what's going to happen.
Yeah,
we can't even get shit under control in our own state, so we're not even going to bet.
Right.
We're not going to bet on playing again this year, probably.
Right.
Which really pains me to say. We might do like a live stream or something like that if we can get it together and make it look good.
You did that acoustic show at Rose just a couple weeks ago,
Jason
which was good.
Kinderbean helped us with that, and it looked awesome.
Yeah,
really
it did.
happy,
Multiple angles and everything.
Yeah.
Was there people there? Because I don't remember seeing a crowd shot.
There was, I can't remember. I think it was like 30 to 40 people, which, I mean, they had just passed the mask ordinance here in Columbia, so it was kind of like a new thing. And but, I mean, props to the people at Rose for, like, making that work and making sure people were still safe and could still enjoy live music, because I know how hard it is to, like, try and arrange stuff like that, especially during a pandemic. So I have to give major props to them, because it was, like, flawless. It was great.
Right. So, yeah, talking about how it's affecting you guys as a band, but, like, personally, like, how has it been for you dealing with everything?
Oh, man. This has been, like, the worst year ever. Like, it's just been, like, just the amount of, like, depression, because it's like you can't go out and do what you love to do, and you have this, like, the most, like, successful thing that's happened in your life thus far, and you cannot capitalize on it, and that does something to you mentally.
Yeah.
So for sure, like, early March, like, it was kind of like, oh, this is cute, quarantine's cute, we'll be out of it in a couple months or whatever, and then it just, like, goes on, and then your boss tells you that you're probably not coming back in the office for the rest of the year, and then George Floyd gets murdered and everybody watches it worldwide on the internet, and it's like all these things just like on top of one another, and it's just it's been a very rough year. But now luckily, like, I've been able to cope with it a little bit better, but yeah, it's been tough. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a real struggle at times.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys like discussing just kind of changing your game plan up with just going forward, how you play shows or how you guys do things in general?
I mean, we've tried to adapt. I mean, it's hard when we don't have like the know-how to do live streaming ourselves, so we have to pay somebody to do that, but we're not making any money. So it's like, how do we make money first and foremost? And then second, how do we pay people to like help us do these things that we don't have the equipment or the knowledge to do? So we've had lots of discussions, but really I think our main focus right now is to obviously keep pushing the single. We're kind of at the point where it's going to start to fall a little bit, but the fact that it stayed up there for as long as it has, being a completely independent band and it's our debut single, we're really impressed with the outcome. So we're going to be happy about that regardless of not being able to play shows and things like that. But really now we have so much material that we're just probably going to self-record an EP or 2 or 3, who knows. So yeah, we just want to make sure to keep, new material coming all the time, because that's all you really can do at this point.
Yeah, all the social media is still working despite.
Yeah, it's
so
hard to come up with stuff. There's nothing going on, so it's hard to I don't want to be repetitive, or I don't want my posts to come across as like thirsty. That's the last thing I want. So it's you have to, like I said, you have to just adapt. That's just what you have to do. That is like the word for this year is adapt and make it work for you.
Yeah.
So like on a personal level, what are you doing to like stay sane? Like, are you like a stamp collector or something?
No, I mean, I wish I was. I mean, considering the postal service is like dying, I wish I could support them in that way. But I mean, really, like I've had to. Okay, I'll start with this. I've put so much of myself into music for the last 2 or 3 years. Once we really like started to try and like step it up, so I've had to really like take a step back and figure out who I am outside of music. And even though like we have all this stuff going on, I've had to really like spend time with myself. And that's been really a big project of mine, is like getting to know myself again and figuring out like, what do I like that's not related to my band? Like what's that? And so I'm still like trying to figure that out, because I just like music is such a big part of me. It's like all of me. So really I've been playing a lot of video games, and I know that sounds like super lame, but I've always loved video games, and I stopped playing them because we were gigging all the time and we were always traveling, and I was working a full-time job. So it was like, let's just like not worry about growing so much as a human this year, and just like take it one step at a time and just like relax a little bit, because something is telling me, like the universe is telling me, just like chill. Hopefully that means that next year I'll be super busy and then I'll forget that I even like video games again. But I mean, it's just like, I think everybody needs to remember that is like, we aren't supposed to like move mountains right now. We're going through a global pandemic. Everybody's stressed the hell out. People are unemployed. People are losing their jobs. People are going hungry, losing their houses, all that shit. And it's like, we just need to like take a deep breath and just like focus on helping other people and just being the best versions of ourselves that we can be, considering the circumstances.
I don't know how the rest of your band members felt. Like, why is Shea getting to be called on there? The reason is, for me, like your presence on social media and the way that you kind of put yourself out there, like that is super attractive to me. Like, I remember when the Me Too movement happened, like you were very vocal, shared personal stories with all the BLM stuff that's happened, not just recently, but in the past, you've been vocal. And that's huge, because I know like when we were doing stuff back in the day, like we were always trying to be like careful, like we didn't want to offend anybody. And I saw a post recently where you were just like, look, man, I want you guys to like my band, but there's certain things that if you feel it's like, fuck off.
Basically,
like,
yeah.
and that's courageous, man, especially with what you're trying to do. So like, I give you props for that. I don't know if everybody else feels that way, but
they're on board. Brent and Preston have done a great job of like allowing me to have a voice, because I feel like for a lot of women in any genre in music or any art form, I feel like, our voices aren't necessarily the loudest in the room, or they're not made to be the loudest in the room. So they've done an excellent job of just like letting me have the mic most of the time, when it comes to not singing. So that's always really cool. Yeah, they've been great about it.
So, I mean, I'm just curious, like, where do you think us as musicians, like, what do you think our role is right now, especially with stuff like after George Floyd? Like, what do you think that we need to be doing to try to make this situation better?
I mean, we all have a platform, whether it's big or small, it doesn't matter. Like somebody is always like listening to you. And that's what people need to remember is that you always have an opportunity at any given time when you release your art in whatever medium it happens to be, to use your voice to make change and to do something positive rather than like bash people. And you know what? I'm going to use Trapped as an example here because Trapped is fucking up. And I don't know if you guys
The band Trapped?
Yes. They're totally just like alienating people, and the guy just like feels good about it. And it's like, well, I don't want to be that. I never want to be that. And even though I'm obviously anti-racist and anti-homophobia and all these things, like I still don't want to alienate people. I'd rather teach people than say,
Sure.
You don't get it. So I'm not going to take the time to like try and educate you. And so I think that's like kind of the battle that we fight.
Yeah.
But I think that artists, you know, like I said, no matter how big or small your platform is, like you have to use it for good. And
Yeah.
even if you write songs about shaking booties, that's body positivity. So
Right.
I'm always okay with that too. So
And I think what you said earlier, just like not alienating, you know, like, because sometimes these people aren't always racist. They're just ignorant.
Yes.
They just don't know,
Yeah.
you know. And so you were in a position, especially because you kind of are, you're intersectional in many ways, right? A black female from the LGBT community. So like you are a huge person that can really, like, if you take the time to listen to these people and understand where they're coming from, they will then hopefully take the time to listen to you.
I hope so, yeah.
And I think, I mean, I hope you can have plenty of those interactions, because I think you're probably one of the best people to help make some of that change and just listening to each other. Right?
Yeah, I think that I used to be very like, I'm not going to educate people. Like, it's not my job to do that. But I think we're at such a pivotal point where it's like, you have to. And you have to just listen to people. And that's what we've forgotten how to do in the last, I would say, almost 4 years, maybe 4 to 5 years, considering who is president. We've kind of gotten comfortable in just not listening to each other. And of course, there is like a major divide. We're probably more divided than we ever have been. But we can't like get comfortable with not listening. That's the biggest thing. Even if you just like hate what that other person is saying, just listen. That's all you have to do. And like, it doesn't cost anything. Just take a deep breath and just listen. And then like, you can really have like meaningful dialogue with somebody. But we sit on Facebook and we just go back and forth in the comments, and then, well, you said this, and just putting words in people's mouths. And it's just like bullshit. It's all bullshit. And social media is becoming bullshit. Like, it used to be a really good tool, but now it's just like a constant political debate. And I don't know.
I had
It's
to
just
quit. I had to quit
awful.
Facebook.
I don't blame you. I really don't.
At least temporarily.
Yeah.
At least till after
it's
November.
Too much. It's way too much. I'm already sick of it too.
Yeah. Why do you feel that black and female demographics are not equally reflected in rock music?
This is a great question because, like, I wish I had the answer. But I think that when we think of, like, who the typical rocker is, we always think of, like, a white dude. And that's just what the media goes with. Like, for example, what really irked me, and I think what really, like, got me to speak on that probably, like, a couple months ago, was that I think it was M. Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold. Revolver asked him about Black Lives Matter. And I'm like, you could have easily asked, like, LJ from Seven Dust about that. Like, there's plenty of bands with black folks in them that you could ask about Black Lives Matter, but you ask, like, a white guy. And it just was so confusing to me. And it, like, very tone deaf to me as well. But I think that it's just like, that's the default. And that's like what people go to. It's like, that's a big name. We'll just ask him. But it takes more thought than that. And quite frankly, people aren't thinking about that. They're not thinking and looking into things with that lens of like, how can we actually make this like more diverse? There's just no effort. Like, nobody cares to do that because that's maybe not what's going to sell and not what, what people don't want to hear that. A lot of rock fans, to be honest, don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear about politics. They're like, oh, this is my escape. This is, my happy place. And it's like, well, it can be your happy place too. But like, you have to understand there's stuff going on around you all the time. And unfortunately, people like me can't escape it. I have people trying to determine what my basic human rights are all the time. And like, just what was it, like 10 years ago or 5 years ago? Like, I was able to like get legally married, or I had the right to do so if I wanted to. So it's like, people aren't having meetings about like what rights you have. So of course you can just like escape. But for us, it's not like that.
For sure.
But I don't know what it's going to take until there's more representation in media when it comes to rock. I don't know, like, what's going to be the magic equation or, like, magic thing to say to people to be like, hey, you should have, like, a woman on your front cover of your magazine every once in a while. Or, hey, you should ask a black person about racial issues and not a white guy. And it's like nobody's speaking out against it. It seems like nobody in the rock community really cares. And that's disappointing. So I don't know what it's going to take. I hope that one day I get the chance to talk to Revolver and let them know how much that bothered me.
Yeah.
I hope I have my fingers crossed. That's my next goal, is to talk to them and say, hey, don't do that again. I highly suggest for you to not do that again.